everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. Welcome to Lee and Low Books Spring 2026 Seasonal Showcase. We're excited to share what's new in picture books through young adult novels from your favorite independent multicultural children's book publisher. And this year we are thrilled to be celebrating 35 years of publishing books that are about everyone and for everyone. My name is Shaughnessy Miller. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm the marketing manager here at Lee and Low Books. I'm a white woman with wavy brown hair and blue eyes. I'm wearing a purple cardigan, and my background is blurred. Speaking alongside me today are my excellent colleagues, Candice Costin and Diego Cerde. They'll introduce themselves as we move through this presentation. We're also excited to hear from some special author guests today, Kesha Grant and David Bowles. Each will share about the inspiration behind their forthcoming books and what they hope that readers will take with them after reading. All of you who are attending the webinar live with us today will be entered for a chance to win Kesha and David's forthcoming books, Liberty's Forgotten Hero, The Revolutionary Life of James Forten, and both the English and Spanish editions of The Hero Twins in the Realm of Fright. In the next few days, we will choose 5 winners at random and reach out to let you know that you have won. Some housekeeping. To enable closed captioning on your screen, navigate to the Zoom webinar controls toolbar and click the Show Captions icon. If you choose to enable subtitles, you can also adjust the size of the captions at any time by selecting subtitle settings. The audience is in listen-only mode, but we welcome any questions you may have. You can simply find the Q&A button in the toolbar at the bottom of your screen and type your questions into the box that appears. And following the presentation, all registrants will receive a link to a recording via email, and it will also be posted to our YouTube channel. Be sure to head over to Edelweiss after this webinar to request access to digital review copies of all the books we'll cover today. You can also browse our various catalogs while you are there. We're really excited to share a new resource with you all. We publish a range of stories centering Native American and Indigenous peoples, with many written and illustrated from within the community. This catalog highlights those titles and calls out author and illustrator tribal enrollment when relevant. If you are seeking more resources to create lesson plans, guide student reading, and select diverse texts for your shelves, our literacy team of former classroom teachers has created an abundance of cross-curricular teacher guides and thematic lists. We're dropping a link in the chat so you can check out our educators page, and you'll really want to bookmark that page. And before diving into our spring 2026 titles, we want to give a quick shout out to our star-studded 2025 titles. In addition to receiving these starred reviews, The Real Wish, Fall of the Fireflies, and The Doomsday Detectives were each named to Kirkus Best Books of the Year lists. And you can also find Doomsday Detectives on Best of lists from Booklist, SLJ, Science Friday, NSTA, and SCBWI. So dinosaur lovers run, don't walk to pick that one up. Now, jumping into some of our titles. In the fall, we published the first 5 books in the Drumbeat Decodable book collection in collaboration with Indigenous Education Press. This is an early reader series that strengthens phonics skills and offers much-needed Indigenous content to literacy programs. Each book in this collection focuses on a specific vowel sound that uses phonics techniques, kid-friendly vocabulary, and repetition to reinforce the sound. While the first 5 books taught readers short vowels, the remaining 8 will focus on long vowels. The stories offer child-centered plots that keep readers engaged while practicing these foundational skills. And each book also contains a word list, high-frequency words, long vowel words, and fun activities for extended learning. So be sure to complete the collection when these books become available in May. So now, without further ado, let's dive into picture books from spring 2026. Editor Candice Costin will share a look into our exciting brand new picture books coming this spring. Take it away, Candice.
Hi, everyone. My name is Candace Costin. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm an editor at Lee& Low. I'm a brown-skinned woman with glasses and dark hair, and I'm wearing a light blue sweater, and there's a large white bookcase behind me in the background. I'm excited to be here with you all to talk about this beautiful picture book, Ours, A Story of Loss and Healing, written by Mandy Septembre and illustrated by Fran Matsumoto. This is a gentle story that tenderly discusses a family's experience with pregnancy loss and then figuring out how to manage their grief. This book just received a starred review from Forward Reviews. Quote, "This age-appropriate primer on pregnancy loss tackles a complex topic with grace." End quote. There are children and families who are looking for a heartfelt story to help begin a tough conversation about loss, and Ours was created with those readers and caregivers in mind. A boy and his parents are thrilled to be expecting a new baby. As Mama's belly grows, the family prepares and they dream of how their lives will change when their baby girl comes home. But one snowy winter day, Mama and Papa go to the hospital, but they return home without their baby. The family has experienced a late-term pregnancy loss and hug each other tight as they feel their sadness. When springtime comes, the boy and his parents decide to help their hearts heal by working with their hands. They start a backyard garden, and the boy observes each potted seed closely. Some seeds sprout into small plants and keep growing. Some seeds become plants that only grow for a little while and then wither, and some seeds never make it out of the dirt. Through these observations and a meaningful conversation with his mama, the boy begins to understand his own family's experience with loss and their enduring love. Complete with warm illustrations and a thoughtful author's note, Ours will feel like a hug you didn't know you needed. Please look for this lovely picture book when it comes out on March 10th. Up next is a bilingual picture book about a young girl's determination to prove women can dominate on the soccer field. Lucia's Goals, Los Goles de Lucia, is written by Angela Quezada Padron and illustrated by Christina Barragan Forche, and just in time for the World Cup. Fun fact, both the author and the illustrator played soccer when they were younger. We are excited to have a bilingual sports book that features a strong female athlete who takes charge on the field. In Lucia's small hometown, girls weren't supposed to play soccer, and they definitely weren't supposed to be good at it either. But Lucia was determined to prove everyone wrong, so she tied up her sneakers, cut off her hair, and called herself Lucas. As a young woman, Lucia joined an all-female soccer team where she scored goal after goal, leading them to a championship victory. Both on and off the field, Lucia fought for equality, demanding that her fellow female professional soccer players be compensated as much as their male counterparts. Told in English and Spanish, Lucia's Goals is a rousing story about a young girl's determination to defy gender stereotypes and break through barriers. Lucia's story will inspire readers of all ages to take charge on and off the field to achieve their goals. Sorry, I couldn't help myself. Look for this riveting story when it comes out on April 7th. Also coming this spring is the exciting biography Liberty's Forgotten Hero, written by Kesha L. Grant. This is the inspiring true story of James Forten, who served in the American Revolution as a teenager, then dedicated his life to fighting for the ideals set forth by the Declaration of Independence, that all men are created equal. If anyone has questions for Keisha, please drop them in the chat or in the Q&A so she can address them at the end of her presentation. And now I'll pass the mic over to Keisha herself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kesha L. Grant, and my pronouns are she and her. I am a Black woman. I have shoulder-length brown locks with blonde highlights. Today, I am wearing a brown V-neck sweater and black pants. I also wear glasses with purple frames. Currently, I am sitting in an office and my background is blurred. I am so grateful to be speaking with you today about my debut picture book biography, Liberty's Forgotten Hero, The Revolutionary Life of James Forten. In addition to being a children's book author, I am also a teacher based out of Atlanta. I've been an educator for over 20 years and a writer since 2017. The book that I'm talking to you about today, Liberty's Forgotten Hero, highlights the extraordinary life of James Forten, who was an important and consequential 19th century abolitionist based in Philadelphia. Next slide. Um, Liberty's Forgotten Hero is a powerful, true story of James Forten, an entrepreneur, abolitionist, and pivotal civil rights leader. Born free in Philadelphia in 1766, James Forten witnessed the birth of the United States of America and the promise of all men are created equal. As a teenager, inspired by these ideals, he went on to fight in the American Revolution. But after the war, he realized that the new government didn't intend to uphold these promises for all people. Determined, James spent the rest of his life mending America into the nation that it promised to be. His life is an inspiring example of battling prejudice and systemic racism while championing American ideals for everyone. James spent his life and much of his fortune supporting abolitionist civil rights, and in the process, solidifying his place as one of the era's most influential leaders. Um, and the next slide is about my inspiration for writing the book. I first learned about James Forten's life about 10 years ago when I received a copy of his biography, A Gentleman of Color, by historian Julie Winch from my husband, who found it while he was on a business trip. When I first saw the cover of the book, I wasn't sure what to think because I saw the profile of James Forten and I thought, well, I don't know who this person is. And I was a little confused and curious to find out who he was. When I read the back cover of the book, I was my jaw just dropped. This was seemed like an extraordinary person that I had heard nothing about. And as an avid history fan, I was shocked that somebody of his stature had existed, and I knew nothing about him, had never learned about him in school. So I read the book from cover to cover and just was fascinated. Like his life had all the markings of a major Hollywood movie. His father died when he was 7. James went on to go to school for only 2 years because he had to leave when he was 9 to help his family survive financially. And then also at the age of 9, he is there at the very moment that the Declaration of Independence is read for the very first time in public. And he witnesses this event and he's inspired by this ideal of all people being equal. And this is the ideal that propels him to join the American Revolution at the age of 14 as a patriot privateer. And then the rest of his life is just like major moment after that. He's a prisoner of war. And then once he's freed, he walks home most of the journey with no shoes on to go from Brooklyn to Philadelphia and so forth. And so I read all of this about his life and how he worked as an abolitionist and ran a business as a master sailmaker and became one of the wealthiest people in Philadelphia, a black or white. And I think, why doesn't everyone know about this story? And why didn't I learn about it? A couple of years later, I decided to go back to graduate school, and you can see the second picture there, and become to write books for children. And while I'm there, I learned more and more about the craft of writing picture books, particularly biographies. And it was during these workshops that I was inspired and encouraged to begin writing the story about James. So, as I'm writing about James and I'm thinking about, is this really a picture book or should I write something longer? I think about my youngest son, who was at the time a fourth grader. And that inspires me to begin the process of really investing in creating it as a picture book. Because I wanted children as young as my son to have a book that was accessible and inspiring about someone as extraordinary as James Forten, who really did live a life that exemplified the ideals of liberty and equality for all people. And then once I decided that I wanted to write a picture book, then I really began the research process in earnest. So as I researched on this project, I took many different approaches. One of them was to do walking tours through the streets of Philadelphia. I really wanted to walk the streets and to see what James would have seen as much as was possible. And the great thing about Philadelphia is that there are many opportunities to see some very old buildings and I was able to see this Pennsylvania State House. I was able to, if you could look here at this top picture on the film strip, I actually visited the spot where James's home used to be on Lombard Street, which was fascinating to be able to walk there and imagine what his house might have looked like. I also took a walking tour of Philadelphia. It was an African American history walking tour where we had a tour guide who actually gave us an oral history of prominent Philadelphians. And one of those was James Fortin and his entire community. It was really fascinating to learn about the entrepreneurship that existed in old Philadelphia at that time. In addition to that, I visited the Museum of the American Revolution, and you can see there's a picture of my husband who was my research assistant on my walking tours. But the American History Museum had a wonderful exhibit called Black Founders, and there you can see a picture of James Fortin, the famous profile picture of him. The exhibit featured the entire Fortin family, and there was a wealth of information about his community and their involvement in not only abolition, but also civil rights causes and the suffragette movement as well. I also visited the Independent Seaport Museum. And you can see a picture there in the middle where there is canvas cloth as well as tools that James Fortin, the sail maker, would have used. And all of these components really helped me to think about the time and place and that James Fortin lived in. It really helped the historical time frame come alive as I thought about crafting the scenes in the book. On this next slide, you can see some of the other research materials that went into making the book as well. There were several books that talked about not only James Fortin, but also what it was like to be a sailor, which is the Black Jacks book. And then there were two other books that I used for research as well that helped to talk about the Philadelphia community at the time and but particularly African American Philadelphians during that period. Philadelphia was a prominent community with the largest population of free Black Americans of the pre-Civil War era, and they played a huge role in abolition. I was also able to find many primary sources as well, which was absolutely thrilling to see writings in James Fortin's penmanship. I think I got goosebumps the first time I looked at one of his letters. He is most well known for his letters from a man of color, which is a collection of five pamphlets that he wrote in 1813. And these pamphlets were used to protest anti-immigration bills that were designed to prevent free people of color to enter the state and would require free Blacks who already lived there to carry registration papers. James Fortin argued against that bill and was instrumental in helping to stop the discrimination of Blacks and from free Black people from being turned away from the state. And this was an example of his activism, an example of his leadership in the community. And finally, in addition to the research that I did and the walking tours and the museums, I also really thought a lot about the themes that came across in his life. And this last slide is about those themes that I hope readers come away with. One of the most important, I think, is considering the place and importance of historical memory, remembering that the voices of people, of many people, have been marginalized or minimized. Um, and thinking about how we honor those voices and the legacy of people who have made our country a better place, and remembering that there are voices that have not been heard. Another ideal that I hope people come away from is the importance of patriotism and what that really means and looks like. James believed in the American ideals of equality and freedom, and he wanted this for all people. And for him, that was patriotism, demanding that the country live up to the ideals that is set upon at its inception was really important to him. And he lived his life fighting for that. And the activism that he lived also was very important. And I hope that young readers come across understanding that freedom requires ongoing effort. And James Fortin also lived this ideal. One of the ways that he was an activist was by funding the Liberator newspaper, um, allowing his home to be used as a part of the Underground Railroad, and making sure that not only did he fight for the cause of abolition, but he also mentored others to become abolitionists as well. Another theme that I hope people come across with is the importance of entrepreneurship and the responsibility of stewarding the entrepreneurship to help uplift others. James Fortin lived this out as well in his business. As a master sailmaker, he hired people based on their talents. His workforce was one of the most integrated of his time in the 1800s. And he used his fortune to fund abolitionist causes. And finally, I hope that people come across with the ideal of legacy and the importance of that. James Fortin lived a life that was meaningful and inspirational for all people. And he used his wealth to help people, not just as an abolitionist and an activist, but also he understood that not everyone had his financial blessings. And so he used his wealth to help uplift people who were living in poverty as well. Upon his death, over 3,000 mourners, black and white, attended his funeral. And they lined the streets to say goodbye to a man who, by all accounts, was not only kind and fair, but also an inspiration to all who knew him. So I hope that readers come across with a deep sense of who James Fortin was, but also the importance of the lessons that his life can teach us. And that is all I have. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kesha. It's wonderful to hear about all of your inspiration and research. And as people are saying in the chat, it's a very timely book. There's a lot of applications and a lot of back matter in this book as well. So you can find a lot of what Kesha was talking about is included right there in the back of the book. It looks like we don't have any questions right now, but thank you again, Kesha. And you're welcome to type in any questions in the chat and we'll help to answer them if they come up on your end. So, and then moving on, we do have some exciting paperback releases that we quickly wanted to mention that are happening this spring. We have Mama the Alien. It's a lighthearted bilingual story of a young girl that sees the word alien on her mother's immigration card and concludes that her mother must be from another planet. It received a starred review from Kirkus, was an Americas Award commended title, and made the Texas Library Association's Tejas starred reading list. We also have I Remember, Poems and Pictures of Heritage, which brings together 14 award-winning poets and 16 illustrators to share memorable childhood experiences and reflect upon their different heritages, traditions, and beliefs. And among those illustrators and authors are Carol Boston Weatherford, Sean Qualls, Naomi Shihab Nye, and R. Gregory Christie. And this title also received 4-starred reviews. All Around Us is coming out in paper book. This story celebrates the circles that surround us in the sky, the earth, our neighborhoods, ourselves, if we just dare to look for them. It received honors from both the Pura Belpré Illustrator Award and the American Indian Youth Literature Award. And lastly, we have My Tata's Remedies, Los Remedios de Mi Tata, a Pura Belpré honor book. This is a bilingual story of family and traditional wisdom when Tata teaches his grandson Aaron natural remedies through healing neighbors and family. My Tata's Remedies is also an America's Award commended title and an International Latino Book Award winner. Next, we're going to jump into novels for older readers. I'll kick things over to assistant editor Diego Cerde to tell us about our novels from our front list.
Thank you, Shaughnessy. Hi, everyone. My name is Diego Cerde. I am an assistant editor at Lee& Low Books, and my pronouns are he, him. I am a tan-skinned man with short, dark brown hair, glasses, a mustache and beard. I am wearing a yellow sweater, and my background is blurred. I am thrilled to join all of y'all to discuss these wonderful novels. The first of which being My Name is Harriet Mansour, not Harry Mansuit, written by Dr. Haleh Massi and with illustrations by Rasheen Courier. My Name is Harriet Mansour is a hilarious middle grade novel about the trials of puberty, first crushes, bullies, and a loving but sometimes overbearing family. This book is loosely based off the author, Dr. Haleh Massi's, experience growing up in California as an Iranian immigrant. The story centers around Harriet Mansour, a sixth grade Iranian American girl. Her real name is Hangame, but being the only brown girl at her suburban middle school, no one can pronounce it. We start our story with Harriet gearing up for the sixth grade summer field trip, a week at Camp Cottontail, with her best friend Kathy, and the first time ever away from her overprotective parents. If she's lucky, she might even get a chance to talk to Jeremy, her longtime crush. Sadly, before camp even starts, Harriet's bully and sworn enemy, Sarah Gill, starts dating Jeremy. And when Sarah catches a glimpse of Harriet's unshaved legs one day during PE, she bestows upon Harriet the terrible nickname Harry Man Suit. Worst of all, with her father's electronic shop failing, Harriet's parents are seriously considering packing up their life and moving the family back to Iran, away from her best friend and everything Harriet and her sister have ever known. Full of humor and all the awkward bits of growing up and trying to figure it all out, My Name is Harriet Mansour will have kids reaching for a book they can see themselves in. Please keep an eye out for this book when it releases this spring on May 26th. Next, I would like to introduce a coming-of-age young adult novel, Monarchs in the Wild, written by Israel Moya. This story takes place in the fictional town of La Sombra, a migrant farmworker town in California's Central Valley, and follows 17-year-old Cal. This book is for all the kids who felt like they could never get it right, the ones who were always written off from the beginning. We start our journey in May of 1994, at the start of Cal's last week of high school. Hanging out by the train tracks, he unfortunately finds fellow classmate and valedictorian Nora, who has fallen off a walking bridge. The butterflies stitched into her jeans, forever seared into his memory. Having found her body, Cal becomes a person of interest in Nora's death. But he had nothing to do with what happened to Nora. Not that anyone will believe him. Kids like him, poor, bad grades, with long, jagged scars across their faces, always get looked down on. Life was just starting to look up for Cal, too. He has a part-time job at a local grocery store. He's this close to graduating and getting that diploma that proves he's not a screw-up. And he's rolling around town in his new-to-him car, a '68 Mustang. Unfortunately, the car seems to bring more trouble than good to Cal's life, as he struggles with constant repairs. Luckily, an unexpected opportunity lands right in front of Cal, a way out of this town, a way to make something of himself. But Cal needs to first decide who he is and who he wants to be, and make that choice for himself. Accompanied by a cast of colorful La Sombra residents, two down-on-their-luck cholos, a questionable mechanic, his co-workers who just want the best for him, and a mysterious bruja who imparts Cal with otherworldly wisdom and car parts. This book is raw and honest. It's full of Cal's doubts and insecurities, but with all the heart he has to offer too. I hope that you all look for this title on bookshelves starting June 2nd. All right, next up, we have award-winning author David Bohm, along with being the author and translator of more than 40 books. He also teaches literature and Nawa at the University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. Before we bring him out, I would like to introduce David's exciting new middle grade graphic novel, The Hero Twins in the Realm of Fright, and in Spanish as Los Gemelos Héroes y el Reino del Temor. These newest entries in the Tales of the Feathered Serpent series, retellings of pre-Columbian folklore and mythology. This wonderful graphic novel will be published simultaneously in English and Spanish on May 12th. If anyone has any questions for David, please drop them in the chat so we can address them at the end of the presentation. Now, I'll pass it over to David himself to chat more about the Hero Twins.
Awesome. Thank you, Diego. Hi, everybody. My name is David Bowles. My pronouns are he and him and él in Spanish. As a visual description, this is the first time I've ever done this, but I am a light-skinned Mexican American man with kind of straight hair that's kind of growing down into my eyes. Behind me is a turquoise colored wall in my kitchen with my little coffee station on it. So, um, I'm wearing a brown suede jacket and a gray t-shirt. It's really great to be chatting with you guys about this latest book in a project that seems to keep giving and giving and giving. About 8 years ago, the book Feathered Serpent, Dark Heart of Sky, Myths of Mexico was published by Cinco Puntos, which is now an imprint of Lee and Low. And it was intended for a young adult and general audience. The the point of the book was to kind of fill in the gaps in the stacks, if you will, about the stories of pre-Spanish invasion Mesoamerica, the sacred stories and legends and myths that were so prominent and almost completely wiped out by that invasion. And as a young man growing up on the border in a Mexican American community, who was fascinated by mythology, I never got to see any of the mythology of the people who who had lived and whose descendants still live in Central America and Mexico. And it was something that when I got to college and learned that I had kind of been kept from discovering, I doubled down on. And Diego has mentioned that I teach novels, and this project was partly taking a bunch of disparate stories that had been preserved willy-nilly, piecemeal, in different sources, and then translating them from indigenous languages or retelling them and so forth, and then weaving them together into basically a mythological history of Mesoamerica from creation to conquest. And the book was well received and won many awards, but early on it became clear that those stories needed to be told for a younger audience as well. And so that was the genesis of the idea of doing graphic novel adaptations of key stories in that book. So this series Tales of the Feathered Serpent launched with the first volume, Rise of the Halfling King, which retells the story of the city of Uxmal and the half-elven boy who overthrew a dictator there and ushered in 100 years of peace in that area. It's a really fantastic story with lots of adventure and fun. And we followed it up with the Hero Twins and the Magic of Song, which adapts from the really essential text of Popol Vuh, the story of the hero twins. So it's a story or a couple of figures that exist in multiple indigenous cultures, but definitely are perhaps best known in Mexico and Guatemala from their stories in the Popol Vuh. And so their origin story came out in that second volume. And this third one is going to take us on perhaps their most famous journey into the underworld to rescue their father and uncle. And you can see there on the cover the really unique and special artwork of my collaborator on the series, Charlene, who is actually my daughter. She's a 28-year-old Chicana who, you know, does all kinds of illustration from book covers to comics and so forth. And I have had the good fortune to work with her on this series, and that collaboration is something special because authors don't often get to collaborate with their own children. She has done a really, really fantastic job. And you'll see on the cover the hero twins in disguise. They're summoned to the underworld by the lords of Xibalba, the dukes and duchesses, who do not realize that these two young demigods are actually half Xibalban themselves. In the previous book, we see how their mother escaped the underworld, um, pregnant with them, and then gave birth to them in the overworld. Um, and so they are the inheritors both of the kind of like green divine magic of the maze gods who are there to, help prepare the world for the emergence of humanity, and the darker magic of the underworld gods. And they are able to wield those two sources of magic to bring balance back. Because what's happened is in the underworld, which has a purpose, the purification of human souls so that they can pass beyond after their deaths, the leaders of that place have grown cruel and mean, and it's up to the heroes to kind of put them in their place and restore balance, rescue their father, bring their mother back. It's just a really, really great rollicking ride. To do this, when I was writing the script, I went back to the Popol Vuh, back to the Quiché Maya original, in which the boys are hilariously sarcastic, so much fun to read, even in just the original dialogue. Even if you just translate it word for word, it's hilarious. And so taking that and creating these kind of snarky, fun, admittedly demigods, but preteen kind of demigods, and using Charlene's unique visual style to create something that'll be resonant with kids who love graphic novels and comics and animation and so forth was a real thrill. And one of the things that we were able to do was to foreground things that in the original are just assumed. And so in the Popol Vuh, when the story is told, all of the listeners to the story before the Spanish invasion knew the role that their mother, Ishkik or Lady Blood, played in preparing them and teaching them the ways of the underworld, and preparing them, and everybody knew what her role would be once they won. But those are often kind of like left behind. So we foregrounded that. If we look at the next slide, you'll see some of the great interior art that uh, that Charlene put together, and you can see how she uses a lot of the kind of tropes of modern manga and anime and Disney kinds of things, but grounds them in the actual art of Mesoamerica. And to do that, she would study the art, look at the existing codices. We visited a lot of these areas in southern Mexico to look at the ruins and to look at statues and so forth. And then, she just found a way to kind of filter that through her own style to create something that was really visually compelling for young readers. So, yeah, coming out really soon. We've got another one in the works, volume 4. And we're just really excited about bringing these really essential sacred stories and legends to a wider audience using the modern vernacular. And the books come out in English and Spanish. I write the script in English and then translate into Spanish. So you will see here Los Gemelos Héroes y el Reino del Temor. For those readers that you service who need the Spanish edition or would really love it, it's there available for you. And it's a great tool also for families to be able to read the series together, or for people who are learning either Spanish or English to have a resource. That's really great. So yes, the The series has been written up in the New York Times and other places. It's doing really, really well. So I encourage you to take a look at it. I think it'll be appealing not only for young readers, but for adults as well. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much, David. Like you've said, it's a great addition to graphic novels. They're short, engaging. Thank you for giving all of the context um, behind the twins and the demigods and all of that. It's very helpful to hear and really exciting to have another book in the series. And like you said, in both English and Spanish. So
Thank
thank
you.
you again for being with us today. And we also are excited to bring you a refreshed and complete collection of author Shirley Riva Vernick's works. Shirley is a history buff who wants to inform young readers about the past and bring good to the present through her writing. And now in paperback, The Sky We Shared uses the alternating perspectives of Nellie in rural Oregon and Tomiko in Japan to depict the shared tragedies of two countries at war. Based on Japan's Project Fugo during the last stretch of World War II, this strategy sent thousands of balloon bombs across the Pacific to land on American soil. Most were unsuccessful, but a few landed, and the devastation was classified by the US government for many years. This book is a portrayal of compassion and empathy for someone who you are literally at war with, which will resonate in a divided world. We also have updated editions and ISBNs for Remember Dippy and the Black Butterfly. In Remember Dippy, 13-year-old Johnny and his 15-year-old autistic cousin Remember forge a lifelong friendship in a summer they will never forget. And along with the updated front cover, Shirley gives a wonderful foreword about what's changed in the conversations around autism since the book's original publication and why it's important to show joy in neurodivergent stories. The Black Butterfly is a paranormal young adult romance set at Christmas time. Penny's reluctant stay at the Black Butterfly is interrupted by two ghosts, one friendly, one not, and a potential first love in this spooky sweet story set on the mysterious coast of Maine. This page-turning story finds Penny in a race for her life from the moment she arrives at the Black Butterfly. This page turner is a spooky treat. And lastly, I wanted to share two novels that are also now available in paperback. Claro de Luna is the Spanish edition of The Moonlit Vine by Elizabeth Santiago, which was a Kirkus Best book and was named to the Rise Feminist Book Project list. 14-year-old Taina just learned that she is a descendant of a long line of strong Taino women, but will knowing this help her bring peace and justice to her family community. And All the Stars Denied is the companion novel to Pura Belpré Award winner Guadalupe Garcia Mical's critically acclaimed Shame the Stars. And it is as timely now, if not more so, than when it was published. This title tackles the first mass deportation event in the US, which swept up hundreds of thousands of Mexican Americans, citizens, during the Great Depression. We're excited to have those available now. And that wraps up our Spring 2026 showcase. Many thanks to my presenter colleagues, Candace and Diego, and of course to our authors, Kesha Grant and David Bowles. You can find pre-order links for all of these titles on our website. And please stay up to date with all things Lee and Low by following us at Lee and Low on your favorite social media platforms. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok Threads, and YouTube and LinkedIn. Just a shout out if you need help with Spanish collections or have districts scrambling to get Spanish bilingual books they need, please contact us at quotes@leeandlow.com. And lastly, if you want some of our updates straight to your inbox, sign up for our newsletter. It's on our website and we'll drop it in the chat. But thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We can't wait to chat with you about books soon. And until then, take care of yourselves. Thank you.